So, welcome to all of you. My name is Hróbjartur Árnason and I'm at the University of Iceland, and I welcome you on behalf of the NVL, Nordplus, Nítus, Kvasir, Fun and I can't even see who, Nýja Vegar. So these people, these organizations are all participating in this series of webinars, which the distance group, which is a network connected to NVL. NVL is Nordic Voksneslarende, Nordic Network for Adult Learning. And we are revisiting projects which we studied some 6 years ago, when we went to 6 different places around Scandinavia to see how distance education can support and influence rural development. And we will be revisiting and re-interviewing people who were participating in various projects, and we want to see why do projects live, what makes them work, and what are the success factors for projects, educational projects in rural areas especially. So this is kind of where we're warming up, we're getting some theoretical background, and we invited to be with us today Anna Guðrún Edvardsdóttir. She's here next to me. So we're here in a small studio in the University of Iceland. Hello Anna, nice to have you with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
And we have to be quite close to each other so we can be in the picture. But maybe I can start on the other computer when we've started talking to Anna. So I think there's a question I have for the participants here. So where was it? I wanted to have something else here. David, you won't like this. I had a poll and it was supposed to be here. I'm sorry about this, I had prepared this very well. Now here it is, sorry. Okay, so just so that we can know a little bit more about you who are with us here today, would you please tell us, click in all the places which are relevant to you. So you can click in 1 or 2 or all of these. At the same time, I'm trying to start my other computer because I really like to have my computer connected to the internet with a thread. Okay, so some of us, a quarter of us, live in rural areas, and a third or 2/3 organize distance education. Few of us teach, and all are interested in rural development.
That's nice.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's not organized teaching. One more.
Sorry?
I changed. It's Päivi Turunen from Gävle.
Okay.
So I also teach in distance education.
Okay, lovely. Lovely. Now, Anna.
Yes.
We need to introduce you to these people, and what I know about you is you are a teacher.
Yes, that's
and,
right.
And we got to know each other when you were doing your doctoral studies here at the university.
Yes.
Maybe I should just ask you to tell us a bit about your background and why rural development is interesting to you.
Yes, I'm originally born and brought up in Reykjavik, in the capital. But after I had done my teacher training, I moved to a small town far from Reykjavik in a rural, remote area called the Westfjords in Iceland, where I was a teacher and later a principal of the school there, and then I got involved in all kinds of activities, which often happens when you move to a small place like that. People become get into more than one role. To be yes. So I got involved in the politics, and became a member of the town council, and later in 2006 I was elected chairman of the Association of the Municipalities of the Westfjords area as a whole. And you could say that is when I started to get interested in rural development. At that time, a great development in the knowledge society took place by there were all kinds of university centers and research institutions that were established, and in a way you could say that people in the area believed that the knowledge society was the tool to change the rural development into a positive one. For example, higher educated people, their kids would move back home, and we could get a big university that would attract students, and that would be the tool to you could say increase the population of the areas. But that didn't happen, and it hasn't happened. And I started to wondering why what the reasons for this not to happen. We believed it so deeply, and people were in a way disappointed that there was not this mass population that everybody had hoped for. So there had to be some other explanations for this, and that is was the trigger for my thesis.
Okay. Yeah, that was, so for your thesis, you studied 3 different areas in the Nordic area, 2 in Iceland and 1 in Scotland.
Yes.
And tell us a bit, what were the problems they were dealing with, and were they very similar, were they very different?
Well, there were 2 areas in Iceland. There were Westfjords and East Iceland. And the reason for choosing those 2 areas in Iceland was that there was no university operating in the area at that time. And it still isn't. There are no universities in these 2 areas. So people had to rely on distance learning methods. And we can just maybe we can just go through the
slides.
The slides.
Yeah, just in a minute. You can see I'm playing around with with the technology a bit.
Okay. No, it's okay. I can.
We can.
Yeah, but.
So the.
Yeah, but.
The problems, were they the same or were they different?
Yeah, I thought they were different. I thought there were more differences between these 2 areas. I thought they had been struggling with out-migration and young people and women leaving the areas and so on. So they have been struggling with similar
so people leaving,
yes,
and few people coming in.
Yes,
that's the major problem.
That's the major problem, and also this not a very diverse labor market. Yeah.
So they lack knowledge. They lack people who know how to do different things.
That's the thing.
You mainly have people who know to do one specific thing.
Yes.
Like in Iceland, in the western fjord, fishing, and the eastern maybe fishing as well.
That's the same.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
more agriculture. It's more suitable for that. But then I added the Western Isles of Scotland.
Okay.
They are. People in Iceland know these islands from our sagas.
Yes.
Yes. This used to be one of the Vikings inhabitants lived there, and they had also been facing similar problems. Young people and women moving away, and not very diverse. Not much diversity in the labor market, but they had been, and I'm interested in the establishment of the University of Highlands and Islands.
So that's
they were part of that. Yes,
that's a special Scottish thing.
Yes,
where they to support rural development, the Scottish government started a special university.
Yes, it's it's not a normal university like we know. It's a university that's based on 13 partners that are scattered around the islands and the highlands and the islands. So the University of the Highlands and Islands is the umbrella, you could say, and all the other institutions that are dealing with higher education, adult learning or research activities are under the umbrella. And in 2000, and they were first. It was established 1997, and it was first in 2012, I believe, that they got the permission to call themselves a university. And people who graduate, they graduate from the University of Highlands and Islands now.
Okay.
So I mean, you can. And they are very much in blended learning and distance learning. And if you want, for example, to study Nordic archaeology, you can do it through Orkney College.
Okay.
And then you can move there and be face-to-face learning, or you can do it by distance learning or blended learning or so on. So they're very flexible. Yeah.
So we have different ways of addressing this. We will be coming into ways Iceland has been addressing these problems, but mainly we have an exodus of people, brain drain, and few people who know. That's a small, not very varied work market. No. And I wanted to go over to our participants here. Could you tell us a bit, just in the chat here, those of you who have direct contact with rural areas, what are your experiences? What are people dealing with? Are they dealing with other things that Anna has mentioned? Could you, in the chat, just write issues that you know that the people you are working with in rural areas are dealing with? Just to get some feedback from you. While we're writing, I think I'll turn on the other microphone because I think it's better. So let's see, I'm turning on the other one. I hope this is better. So many of you are writing while we're waiting for your answers. David, is this okay? Is this better? Or should I go back to the other microphone? Okay. Thank you, David. We're looking forward to your Ebba says you started the project with Greenland. Okay. Do you know what problems they are dealing with? So you need a system to deal with distance learning. Okay. So when we think about rural education, well, something which when let's go into now we work with this a bit. The camera is always refocusing. That's quite interesting.
I don't know. We are just blurred sometimes. Yeah. But it's okay.
Okay. So we have okay, here we have in the normal chat, Andrea says it's similar in many parts of the world, but we should not distance ourselves by third center periphery model. Distance learning underscores. We need normal accessible. Anders, would you want to say something?
Yes, well, I have a conceptual re-engineering and conceptual analysis as a part of my doctoral research, and I think these terms, distance learning, e-learning, online learning, are beginning to become old, really. I think we shouldn't use them. We should demand a more normal, mainstream and accessible education instead, because, well, distance learning, you never learn anywhere else than where you happen to be. It's a question about communication, and we get better and better communication each day, and then we can reframe the education world in many ways. And the classroom is an ICT as well, only old. So.
Yeah, that's it. Yes. Okay, so we have people. Toril says they have well-educated people attend many courses with demand from the many methods. Ebba says the teachers don't have formal education, so they need more education. And thank you for the link. That I'm looking forward to check that out, David. And then it's the bandwidth problems. Okay. So these are quite interesting aspects, and I totally agree with you on this. And Anna Ries. So we use many different ways, I can see, to communicate with our students. From here, we have. I think most of us know quite well what problems we're dealing with in rural areas, and what when politicians talk about these problems, they very often, and as you write about in your doctoral thesis, they very often want to use economical methods. But I also remember very often, and when we had the financial crisis here in Iceland, the politicians said everybody should go and learn, And one way of trying to deal with the problems we see with rural development and just sustaining people in the rural areas is to increase education. And we have a very recent example of that in Iceland, exactly in the Western Fjords where you have been, where you lived, in Flateyri, which is a town which has really been experiencing a lot of people leaving. They're starting a new school this autumn on the model of the Nordic Folkhögskola. So this is what we do. And what I really want to find out from you is, does it really help? What have you found out?
Okay, if we can go to the next slide.
Yes.
Is that possible?
Of course.
Because next, you see, this slide is showing you the what is in the rural development plans about the development of the knowledge society in Iceland and then in Scotland, in the Western Isles. And this is in a way quite similar in a way. This is just how it has been developed since 1998 in Iceland and the same in Scotland. What I want to take out of it and talk about is that it's very much, and that is because of the politics, it's very much emphasis on the triple helix model, which is, I'll
please explain that.
Yes, and clusters, but the main goal is different. You see, in Iceland, the goal is the population issues, is to increase population and trying to stop out migration from the areas, while the Western Isles rural development plans emphasis on the creation of resilient and sustainable communities. And that's quite different how you address the same problem.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go to the next slide.
Wow.
Yes, this is. I looked into. It's the development on Westfjords and East Iceland, the population development since 1970, and you could say that the Knowledge Society's development started in 1970 when the secondary college of the Westfjords was established.
Yeah.
Because they were using the same They said the same things to rationalize to get the secondary school as they did in 2005 to get the university center. I mean, they were same arguments.
Yeah.
So what had changed?
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that had changed was this academic drift up to the at the university level.
Mm.
But as you see, there has been in both these areas, there has been similar things going on. Both got the secondary college, both areas got the Stern Trawler project, which was a governmental top-down activity. Mm-hmm. They had both suffered the snow avalanches that fell in some towns and claiming people's life. So they were facing similar things, and they also got the similar things. Wow. They got the development of the Knowledge Society, but they address it not the same. In Westfjords they got the university center, while the East Iceland got the knowledge network that's become to Österbro today.
Yeah. So just to clarify, in 1970 they used the same arguments to get the argument we need to raise the level of education in our area, and this will help people to stay.
Yes,
and if they take their education here, they won't go away.
So they were using the same.
And in 2005 they did the same, same reasoning, and in the eastern country
in 1979 they got their secondary college.
Yes.
But the main thing I want to address here is that in 2007 the power plant station and the aluminium factory in East Iceland, it's a large-scale industry, like the Stern Trawler project was. Mm. We always get into everything we do in rural areas has to be on large-scale industry. It's something we I don't know why.
You mean you're talking about Icelandic way of thinking?
Yeah, of thinking, and it's and it's not just the government; it's the people
themselves.
Yeah, the politicians in the areas that call for it. But despite this, that at the same time the Knowledge Society's development has been running on the way, but the population is still decreasing. Mm-hmm. So, and then there is the new thing. Everybody are saying that this is our new industry, and that's rise in the aquaculture, and that is going to be the new large-scale industry.
Uh-huh. So what you're telling us, we
repeat ourselves all the time,
and with not very much effect.
No,
it doesn't really change.
Yeah, but the goals of population increase are not met, but we still get into the same activities.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So that is why the next one is about the triple helix model and the quadruple and quintuple are they called. Is that the triple helix model is...
What is a helix?
That's the balloons, you could say. Yeah.
Circles.
Yeah, circles. You could
Which
say.
repeat like
No,
this?
no, it's
just a circle.
Yes, they're
Okay.
just like this, and it depends on that the interaction of the knowledge society and with rural development seems to be through these triple helix model, and the discourse it revolves around rationalizing that the knowledge society must work with the industry and the government to strengthen rural communities, and the belief is that a powerful business sector and innovation, with increased job opportunities, could attract higher educated people and strengthen the rural communities. Mm-hmm. That is the belief. But and in order to accomplish this, you have to work with the area's strength and speciality, and that tend to be identified from the perspective of the dominant industry in the areas. And in both Iceland and in both Westfjords and East Iceland, it is the fisheries. So as you saw in the previous slide, it's not working. So what I proposed was that you have to, and researchers are putting the triple helix model into the context of the community and the environment. And they are the fourth and fifth helices. And community is then the frame where knowledge creation is formed, and the environment forms the main frame around everything.
So you're saying that the triple helix model is too simple?
Yes, we need to address,
we need to take the environment and the community into this discussion and incorporate them into our ideas about how to strengthen the rural areas.
And you could say that these quadruple and quintuple models with the triple helix model is some kind of a sustainable development, because it works with the economy, the environment, the society, and the culture. And that is what they are doing in the Western Isles, because they are. Their goal is to create sustainable and resilient communities. They have moved from this triple helix model into the.
So what you saw when you were studying the Isles, Western Isles in Scotland, was that they are using a more complex model to deal with this problem. Icelanders are still using the triple helix. They think, if you drop one university or high school there, everything will be better.
Or if you go into a big, large-scale industry in aquaculture, that's the answer.
Okay. We've been talking and talking. Is anybody there who wants to take the microphone or write a question to Anna right now? Just to what's it called? Just to throw the ball out to you. Are there any questions? Is something? Do you need some clarification? By clicking on the microphone, you might be able to address us verbally, or you can write in the chat.
And like Birgit says, the quadruple and quintuple models need a well-functioning local democracy, and that people know where to go and so on. And that is maybe the next slide I was going to talk about. This is, that you have to combine the scientific knowledge and the local knowledge. You have to listen to the people, and you have to use a place-based approach. In education, and so you could say that. That this three-dimension, ecological, social, and political dimension of place is focusing on people as placemakers, and how that place-based education that should link scientific and local knowledge in order to create transdisciplinary knowledge which favors all kinds of knowledge equally. And you just don't listen to what the science says, you know, the research that's doing, but you have to. What about the people?
But if we talk about, most of us or many of us are working with distance education. And I know you interviewed women who have taken distance education courses. And maybe this is the right place to bring that question. I remember when during the last time we took up this discussion, both you and a colleague from the Tromsø University mentioned that very often when people are taking distance learning courses, they focus so much on learning the content that they kind of don't manage to connect it to their local situations.
No, that's right.
So can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yes, that is what when I interviewed the women, I mean, they were also very happy about their studies. I think there was this longing for a degree is the driver, not maybe the content of where you can link the knowledge to the your environment, to the community you are living in. That is why I think this place-based approach that should which look into the local knowledge and
but that's quite difficult. Maybe if I've got a course with 20 or 200 participants, and some of them live somewhere in the rural area, and how on earth can I, as a teacher at a university in the capital, support place-based education when I have maybe 3 on the western fjords and 1 on the northern and 1 on the eastern? What can I do?
Yes, sorry, Anders. I have this. The paper you were mentioning is one of my. I have it in my thesis. So
Thank you.
This.
Thank you for the citation.
Yeah, I know, Roger, that it's difficult when you have all this, but the university, I believe, needs to change. And what is happening in Scotland is that the college that is based on the Western Isles, which is part of the University of Islands and Islands, looks at itself as a part of rural development.
Yes.
They are in the partnership but University of Iceland never sees its role to be working with the rural development.
Yeah, but one of the reasons when we rationalize why are we doing distance education, it's to support rural areas, to support people in rural areas and therefore rural development.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's just why are not everything that is taught in University of Iceland a distance learning courses? It's not a policy when you say, well, it is a policy in a way, but it's not very convincing. That I don't believe they really are working to be part of rural development, while they say to the teachers, okay, you can just choose. If you want to have a distant learning course, then be free, but if you don't, so it's okay.
Okay.
So
that's a good point.
Yeah, so I believe that the university needs to look at themselves. And the thing is, University of Iceland has research institutions based around Iceland, but they never use it for teaching. It's just they are just using the rural areas as a laboratory to gather information, do research that they can use in the area here in Reykjavik, even though they have this.
So for our listeners abroad, the University of Iceland has research centers in 9 different places around the country, and each of them has its own specific area of research.
Yeah. And it's all the area strength and speciality. Nobody is doing anything there about rural schools, for example.
No.
It's just in biology and fisheries, nature, culture, and history. That's the research.
So we should maybe put some people there, educational researchers.
Or people who can go there and study there because they have offices and everything and be in contact. So that is what I believe, this place-based education, and it is a gendered perspective. And I put the ecofeminism, because because that focused on the domination and control over women and how that is connected to the domination of natural resources, both at land and sea.
Now, the Birgit in Asia, in Greenland, she's taking up your point.
Yeah.
That's quite interesting what she says here. She knows this concept, place-based approach, and which is discussed a lot in around the time. But people in rural areas are generally skeptic when it comes to, for instance, to sustainable hunting and fishing. Do you mean, Birgit, when we are talking about it, or they don't feel heard by the scientists? Okay. And the same happens in the educational system. Teachers in high schools, for instance, don't feel heard by the central government. Yeah, that's of course what is the weight of the people in the local areas when speaking to central government.
Yeah, people. That is, the people are. They are not looked at as active placemakers in their communities.
And that's another question. When something which I find interesting, and maybe when we are thinking about life, it's often easier to tell stories. When we were doing this project the last time, we visited Gaudogetno, a university up in Lapland, in the Sami people, the Sami University in northern Norway. And from there I went and visited a friend who lives on the border between Norway and Russia. And what I found, she's an architect. And what I found interesting was she moved there from another place, but she was using her architectural education to make this place a better place to be. So she looked around and found derelict fishing huts on the shore. We have these in Iceland, we have these in the Faroe Islands and in northern Norway, small huts where the fishermen would keep their boats or just their fishing gear. And she was restorating them. She looked up the people who owned them. She found money and she helped them make them nice again. And so this was kind of restoring culture and history.
Yeah, she was listening to the people.
Yes.
Yeah, she was working. It was a place-based approach.
And that's what I thought. And this is something which I think distance education. When we had the teacher from the university in Tromsø, she said, what we are doing with our distance education is raising the capacity of the local people, and so that they can do so they can do more complicated things. And if I understand you correctly, you want people who are dealing with adult or distance education, especially connected with rural education and rural areas, is that they need to help these people see projects that they, with their knowledge and capacities, can make better in a way, so they can create new stuff in their areas. Yeah,
that is what I believe when place-based approach using that, and also if we go to the next slide, this is really maybe the key. I mean, women are the ones who go attend universities. In Iceland, it's about 70% of the students in University of Iceland are women. So, but in research here and someplace show that women believe they find themselves living in a communities that favor male values, and they think they have less action space. And you can see the slides.
That's strange.
Yes.
Is that true with everybody? I can see it on both my computers, and this is being sent. The slides are being sent from Denmark,
Yeah, I see. I can see them. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, he will, and they think they have limited access to the area's resources, which is, the fishing
The
quota
women.
system,
That's
women,
yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
and they do, and also do not have the same access and power in local politics, meaning that even though women are getting into local politics very much now, still they have not access to the power.
Okay.
Yeah.
And one thing you found in your research as well was that they, when they are educating themselves, they go into traditional women's jobs. They don't go into business.
No. And the thing also is that we have this rural development institution, Byggðastofnun in Iceland, and they have done published a report about they were predicting the population in every community in Iceland. And the thing is that the rural population is going to decline even more from now if they won't be doing anything. If everything will be the same, even though the aquaculture goes up, it will be declining. So for me, what I found out is that women are sort of key players in this area, in this, and also that if we go to the next slide, this is what women in rural areas in Iceland have, this traditional perspective towards life. That means that those women who move to the rural areas are those who are looking at life, are those who look at rural areas as good places for raising children and family-friendly jobs in the children and youth and care sectors. So, but even though they feel that they live in a male-dominated communities, that there are male values that are the ones that are dominated, and the funny thing was that women they tend to go into studying to be teachers and nurses, and in this women spectre, you could say sphere of life, and when they have this traditional perspective that it was a natural thing, that you couldn't change it. Women didn't go into fisheries because they had not interested in it, and some even said that they were not fit to be fishermen.
Okay.
Yes. So that strengthened, of course, the male dominance over the natural resources. And the thing is, there is the power and the money. Yeah.
So the power is in the traditional economic structures.
Yes, it is.
And in Iceland, that's fisheries.
Yes, that's fisheries.
And because the women don't go there, they can't access the power.
Yeah. But the funny thing is that even those who were, in a small family businesses, maybe one boat who has a quota and so on, the women didn't think of themselves as being part or running that small company, even though they did everything else unless go.
Yeah, apart from the fishing
they were
itself.
The bookkeepers and so on. they didn't see themselves as a managers. They were not. Yeah. So
here's Anna has something. Anna is writing about Viking women. There's an exhibition in Alta on Viking women, and claimed that Viking women, due to their long periods of ruling the family by themselves, made her strong and able to manage family affairs and take care of children.
Yeah.
We have this idea that Viking women are stronger, and I think at least people who live in Scandinavia, we and know a bit of the world around us, that the situation of the Nordic woman is stronger than in Germany, France, Italy, or Africa.
Yeah, that might be, but the thing is that
And they, I mean, Icelandic women did that, and those in the fishing communities, when the men were fishing, they were taking care of things and so on. But it doesn't change. It didn't change that it was the man, who were taking the decision of how to use the natural resource.
Yes.
Yeah. In the Western Isles, what they have done is that the Scottish government has helped communities because their natural resources is the land.
Uh-huh.
But the owners of the land were absent lords.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, who used the highlands and islands as a fishing, hunting areas.
Okay.
So now, if a community can make a plan about how they would use the land in a sustainable way, they were able to get a loan from the government to buy the land from the lord. But what they have done is that they put this land they bought into a community trust fund, which is run by the people.
Uh-huh.
It's not by the politicians in the area. It's the people, and they have a board that is elected from the people in the area. It's not a political one. And if there are some major things that are going, they have to have a decision. There is a meeting, and everybody talk about it and make a decision. As for what example is that there's been a lot of discussion about on the Isles about windmill farming. Mm-hmm. And there was a big company who wanted to build a huge windmill farm in one of the communities in the Western Isles. And there was a meeting about this. Do we, the people, want this in our community? And they said no. Uh-huh. No, this is too big. We want to do it from our own perspective. Yeah. We want a windmill farm, but not so big, huge. A small one that is suitable for us and is sustainable. Mm. So that is why, if we go to the next slide, I had some comments, suggestions. And one is to establish community trust funds, and I would very much like to see so-called community fishing quota put into a community trust fund where the people in the community will decide who are we going to who is going to go and fish it, how are we going to work with it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Not the politicians, because
or the big companies.
So it will be the people who would decide, So that is one. One is partnership in place-based plan at community level, and I believe that every community, whether it's a small or a big, should be able to do their own community plan. Even a small town like I was living in of 700-900 people, we should be able to do they should be able to do their own community plan. Mm-hmm. How does we want to work? How would we like to see place-based education put into our schools, or how would we like our community to develop?
That's an interesting point. I'm at the University of Iceland, and we have some distance education, especially within the field of education. And we are beginning to feel pressure from local initiatives. So local politicians and normal people, they have been approaching the university and asking, what are you doing for us? And this seems to have some impact. And we actually have been getting requests from the local communities for studies. And this is something which I know from Sweden as well, from those of you who work with the study centre. What I learned about them is that they often, you have a learning centre in the local community, and that learning centre they will negotiate with the university somewhere far away
Yes.
to create a course for 20 or 50 people or 13, I don't know, so many people in their local area. So this is a way where in the school we have some models where local people are affecting and creating educational possibilities for themselves and for the people there.
Yeah, and I believe if every community would be able to do their own place-based, place-based plans.
Yes.
Then these things would come up. What sort of education do we want? And then you can take into account this place-based.
Yeah.
So it should strengthen your community.
Yeah.
But also, I would like to see a knowledge society partnership that in a similar way as they did in University of Highlands and Islands. The Highlands and Islands, they have 450,000 people or something like this. And they have this one university.
Yeah.
We have 330,000 people, and we have 7 universities.
Yes.
Well, I don't know how that works, but why not having an umbrella university and all the others go under there and research institutions and so on? So, there will be some kind of a cooperation, and they will work together. And of course they will merge some of them, because we have in 4 universities in Iceland we can learn we can learn business studies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then my last is that women in rural areas, the status of them should be looked better into, because I was reading there is researchers that say that women they don't move to remote and rural areas in the Scandinavia.
Okay.
Is that what you are? Do you agree with me? That's some researchers that show that, and so I think we have to look at what are women looking for.
Yeah.
What kind of quality of life do they? There must be something.
Yes.
I mean, there are jobs for higher educated people. You can take distance learning. You can learn. You can study and so on. But they still move away, and they don't move to the area. So. There has to be something else, and that is quality of life.
That's nice, because that's one of the things I remember we talked about 6 years ago. It's not enough to bring work. It's not enough to bring education. There has to be a certain quality of life where in these areas. And what I found interesting when I went on the trip with my architect friend in northern Norway, she wanted very proudly to show me around her fjord. And we drove out to the fjord and came around coffee time to a village or town which had been a very strong fishing industry town. And we went to the bakery to buy coffee and a cake, and the person who was working there was putting the cakes away because they closed at 2. And so he said, you can have, there may be some coffee left in the coffee dispenser, but we don't have any cakes, he said, and put all the cakes into the cupboard. And we actually experienced this a few times, this question of service orientation. And are we here are we trying to make this a nice place to live in, or are we just doing our jobs and quitting at 2 o'clock?
That is something that should be in place-based plans.
Yes.
That you have to look at the communities have to look at themselves and think, are our people here, are they happy? Do they feel appreciated? How can we help them to adjust, especially when it's harsh winters? I mean, after harsh winters in Westfjords, there were much more out-migration than if the winter were So yeah, you just have to accept it that this is an issue. It's more of an issue, I believe, than a job or something. But they did the research in this community where in the Western Isles, how this community trust funds has changed the way people look at themselves and at the community. And people were happier. They were looking much brighter towards the future. They felt appreciated, and they had gotten strong because they were active placemakers in their own community.
Okay. I think we should stop here. It's a few minutes before.
Yeah.
Before 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, or 11 o'clock in Greenland. So Birgit has been writing something. She says there are many hidden resources in rural areas, which we can't see in the big cities because we don't. And maybe because you don't show them off. And so okay, you experienced that when you moved from Nuuk to Asia.
Yeah. Yeah, there are place-based skills and everywhere. Education everywhere.
Yes.
And people, it's common to the people, but when you start looking at them and you work with, like doing certain kinds of place-based plan, they will emerge.
Maybe this is what I connect with here is for some time we've been kind of normalizing everything, standardizing so much. And what this happened, for example, with the European Union, you had the same cheese everywhere, but people travel because they want to come to special places. So for example, us in the Scandinavian countries, developing local knowledge, local self awareness is a way to strengthen these areas and make people proud of being there, and being part of something special, and wanting them to stay there and develop it and maybe give it to people, to visitors.
So you could say that my conclusion is that the Knowledge Society, university, distance learning and everything can add to this place-based thinking approach, making this place-based plan being a part of linking the scientific knowledge and the place knowledge together and work with it.
And so maybe your message to us who are working with distance education and people like you who are working with educators who are teaching through distance education is that we should be helping our students who live in the rural areas to do projects which are connected to their local areas. So when we say write an essay about Father Christmas, we should change it right away. Traditions about Father Christmas in your areas. So, and what does Father Christmas mean in your valley, or what, etc.
For example,
things like that. Thank you. So we've got 1 minute left, so we're stopping, and so
are you going to send them the slides?
I will send you slides. I will send you links to Anna's dissertation and other information after this.
My email.
Your email. Yeah. So if you want to contact Anna and ask for something more, feel free to do so. We in Distance are very happy to have you with us, and thank you very much for all the comments you've been writing. Please participate in our evaluation. This is what is your general evaluation of the webinar. Please answer here on your way out, and you will be getting an email from us soon about our next webinar, which we will be for the next 2 years conducting a series of webinars on this, and we will be in the Faroe Islands in May so Distance will be there working on the same project, you can follow us on the NVL website. So thank you for being with us, and I hope you enjoyed it. You will get a link to our recording as well. So thanks a lot, and we hope to meet you again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.